My water glass on the bedside table is warm. That's how long I've been awake. I remember filling it with ice at 11 p.m., right before I knelt beside this bed and asked God for something I've now asked for 17 months straight. A job. A sign. A single open door. Anything. And I remember climbing under these covers with something like hope, telling myself tomorrow might be different. But now it's tomorrow. It's 3:17 a.m. And my phone is black. No missed calls. No text messages. No email notification lighting up the screen with a subject line that says, "We're pleased to offer you." Or "after careful consideration." Or anything at all. So I whisper it. Out loud. Into the dark room where no one can hear me except maybe him, if he's even listening. Are you really there? By 9 a.m., I'm sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that went cold an hour ago. The mug is one of those inspirational ones my sister gave me last Christmas. It says, "Trust the process," in gold letters that are already starting to peel off. Ironic. Spread out in front of me is the Wednesday morning ritual I've come to dread. Bills. I arrange them like tarot cards predicting my future. Electric. Water. Car insurance. Medical bill from that ER visit back in March when I thought I was having a heart attack, but it was just anxiety. Turns out panic attacks are expensive. Who knew your body could betray you and then charge you for it? And underneath the bills, like the grand prize at the bottom of a terrible cereal box, is the email. The one I've read 14 times since yesterday afternoon. After careful review of your application and interview, we have decided to move forward with another candidate whose qualifications more closely align with. I don't finish the sentence anymore. I've memorized the whole thing. It's the third rejection this month. The seventh this quarter. I stopped counting the total sometime around February because the number was starting to feel like a personal indictment. Like maybe God was trying to tell me something and I just wasn't listening. My hands are wrapped around the cold mug, and I notice they're trembling. Not from caffeine. From exhaustion. From the constant state of holding myself together when everything inside me wants to come apart. I look at my hands and I see them differently now. The calluses from years of typing, from gripping steering wheels and carrying groceries and clenching in frustration. The lines across my palms that my grandmother used to say told your future. What future would these hands tell? What story do they hold? These hands have written cover letters. They've filled out applications. They've knocked on doors. They've held onto hope when hope made no logical sense. And now they're shaking around a cold coffee cup at a kitchen table covered in bills I can't pay. I see myself in these hands. And I know you do too. Maybe you've been here. Maybe you're here right now. Sitting in your own kitchen. Looking at your own pile of disappointments. Feeling your own hands shake. Wondering how many more closed doors you can handle before you just stop knocking altogether. Here's what nobody tells you about faith. Sometimes it's not about feeling God's presence. Sometimes it's about choosing to believe He's there even when He seems completely silent. Even when the phone doesn't ring. Even when the email says no. Even when your hands shake at 9 a.m. over cold coffee and you can't remember the last time you felt truly at peace. I learned a verse when I was a kid. Isaiah 41 verse 10. I learned it in Sunday school, coloring pictures of lions and lambs while a teacher with felt boards told us God would never leave us. Do not fear, for I am with you. I could recite it before I could multiply fractions. But I don't think I ever understood it until now. Until the silence got so loud I had to decide whether those words were true or just something we tell children to help them sleep at night. Because here's the thing about "I am with you." What does that actually mean when everything is still falling apart? When I'm still losing sleep? When the rejections keep coming? When I feel completely useless and invisible and forgotten? I don't have an answer. I'm not going to pretend I do. I'm not standing on a stage with perfect hair telling you that if you just believe hard enough, everything will magically fix itself. That's not my life. That's not real. What I have is this moment. This cold coffee. These shaking hands. And a question I'm finally brave enough to ask out loud. God, what does with me actually look like? The kitchen is quiet. No dramatic music swells. No angel shows up at my back door with a job offer and a check for my bills. Just silence. But it's a different kind of silence now. Less like abandonment. More like waiting. I set the mug down and I do something I haven't done in weeks. I stop performing. I stop trying to pray the right way, with the right words, in the right posture. I just lean forward, put my head in my hands, and let the words come broken and jagged. Father, I don't know how to pray anymore. I don't know what to ask for. I don't even know if I'm doing this right. All I know is I'm tired. I'm so tired. And I need you. Not the idea of you. Not the Sunday school version. Not the theological concept. I need you. Real you. Here. Now. In this mess. My voice cracks on the last word, and I realize I'm crying. Not the pretty kind of crying either. The ugly kind. The kind where your nose runs and your shoulders shake and you're grateful no one else is home to see it. And here's what I'm learning, even as I sit here with tears dripping onto unpaid bills, maybe this is the starting point. Maybe admitting that I'm weak, that I'm scared, that I don't have it all together, maybe that's not the failure of my faith. Maybe that's the beginning of something real. Something honest. Something that doesn't pretend anymore. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if the phone will ring today. I don't know if next month's rent will come through. But I know I just told God the truth, and somehow that feels more like prayer than anything I've said in 17 months. But then something strange happened when I finally let go completely. I didn't plan to get up. I was done. The kind of done where your body feels like it weighs twice what it should, and the thought of moving from one room to another feels like climbing a mountain. I sat there with my head in my hands, tears drying on my cheeks, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment I stop pretending. But something inside me had shifted. I'd finally told God the truth. Not the polite prayer. Not the Sunday morning version. The ugly, jagged, I don't know if I believe anymore truth. And instead of lightning striking me dead, I felt nothing. Just silence. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a garbage truck somewhere in the neighborhood. And then, for reasons I still can't fully explain, I stood up. I walked to the window above the kitchen sink. The one I'd been avoiding for weeks because the blinds were broken and I didn't have the energy to fix them. The one that faced east, toward the highway and the industrial park and the discount grocery store with the flickering sign. Not exactly a view that inspires worship. But when I pulled the cord and the blinds rattled up, I saw something I hadn't noticed in a long time. The sun was coming up. And it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And standing there with my eyes closed and my hands trembling on the cold windowsill, I remembered something I hadn't thought about in almost a decade. I was 28 years old. Standing in the parking lot of St. Joseph's Hospital at 4:47 in the morning. My mother had died 43 minutes earlier. I remember the exact time because I kept looking at my phone, trying to figure out when my life had split into before and after. The nurse had come out to the waiting room with that look on her face, the one they must teach in nursing school, the "I'm so sorry" look that's both compassionate and completely useless, and I'd nodded and said okay like she just told me my car was ready in the garage. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Diagnosed in March. Gone by November. 8 months from Mrs. Chen, we found something concerning to me standing in a parking lot at an hour when even the hospital seemed to be holding its breath. I remember the cold. November in the Midwest is not kind. The wind cut through my thin jacket. I'd left my coat in her room, draped over the chair where I'd sat for 14 hours straight, holding her hand that got colder and colder until a nurse gently pulled me away. The parking lot lights made pools of orange on the wet asphalt. My car was the only one in the visitor section. A 2007 Honda Civic with a dent in the driver's side door and an empty coffee cup in the cup holder. I stood there and I asked questions I'd never spoken out loud before. Where were you? Did you even hear me? 17 months of prayers for a job, and now this? Now my mother is gone and I'm supposed to believe you have a plan? I did everything right. I went to church. I served. I prayed. I believed. And she still died. So what was the point? I didn't whisper those questions. I didn't bow my head and fold my hands. I stood in the middle of that empty parking lot with my fists clenched and my face turned up toward a sky that seemed completely indifferent, and I demanded answers from a God who, in that moment, felt like the cruelest joke I'd ever been told. And silence. Just like this morning. Just like the kitchen with the cold coffee and the unpaid bills. I didn't walk away from my faith that night. I ran. Full sprint. I stopped going to church. Stopped praying. Stopped pretending that I believed in a loving father who lets mothers die and daughters stand alone in parking lots at 5 in the morning with nowhere to go and no one to call. For almost 2 years, I was done. Finished. The kind of done where you don't even get angry anymore because anger requires energy and I had none left. I became one of those people who says I'm spiritual but not religious because it's easier than admitting you're just empty. But here's what nobody tells you about running from God. He doesn't chase you the way you expect. There's no dramatic intervention. No lightning bolt. No stranger at a coffee shop who mysteriously knows your name and your pain and speaks the exact words your soul needs to hear. That's movie stuff. That's not real. What's real is this: one morning, about 22 months after my mother died, I woke up in my apartment and realized I'd been staring at the ceiling for an hour. Not thinking. Not praying. Just existing. And I heard myself say, out loud, to no one, I don't know how to do this anymore. Not faith. Not religion. Not church. Just life. The weight of carrying my own pain without anyone to help me hold it. The exhaustion of pretending I was fine when I wasn't. The loneliness of believing that no one, not even God, could possibly understand what I was feeling. I got up. Walked to the bathroom. Looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were swollen. Not from crying that morning, I hadn't cried in months. But from years of unshed tears, the kind that collect behind your eyes and make everything look slightly blurred, slightly distant, like you're watching your own life through a fogged window. And I said to that woman in the mirror, the one with the red-rimmed eyes and the chapped lips and the hair that hadn't been washed in 3 days, I said, you don't have to be strong. You were never supposed to be strong. That was never the deal. I don't know where those words came from. I'm not a person who talks to herself in mirrors. I'm not a person who has profound realizations at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. But standing there in my bathroom with toothpaste stains on the counter and a towel that needed to be washed 2 weeks ago, I realized something that changed everything. I had spent my entire life trying to be strong enough for God to love me. Strong enough to handle my burdens. Strong enough to pray the right way, believe the right things, feel the right emotions. And when I couldn't be strong anymore, when my mother died and my faith crumbled and my prayers felt like shouting into an empty canyon, I assumed that meant I was disqualified. That God was disappointed. That I'd failed the test. But what if the test was never about being strong? What if the very thing God was waiting for was my weakness? I didn't have the theological language for it then. I didn't have the Bible verses. This morning, I woke up at 6:47 a.m. Not because I set an alarm. Not because I had somewhere to be. But because my body just opened its eyes. And for the first time in 17 months, I didn't feel that immediate punch of dread in my stomach before my feet even touched the floor. But something was different. Not the circumstances. The circumstances were exactly the same. The difference was me. Or more accurately, the difference was what I was carrying, or rather, what I wasn't carrying anymore. I made my coffee. Sat down at the same wobbly kitchen table where I've eaten approximately 400 lonely dinners. Took a sip. And I smiled. Not a big, dramatic, everything is fixed now smile. Just a small one. The kind of smile that says, okay, I can do this. I don't know how, but I can do this. And that's when it hit me. The morning isn't a curse. It's an invitation. For 17 months, I've been waking up like I was being sentenced to another day. Another 24 hours of pretending I'm fine. Another shift in the prison of my own grief and disappointment. Every sunrise felt like a reminder that God still hadn't answered. Every new day was just evidence that my prayers were still sitting in some heavenly inbox marked unread. But this morning, this ordinary, unremarkable, bills still on the counter morning, I realized something that rewired my entire understanding of what it means to wake up. Every morning, God is not handing me a punishment. He's handing me a new beginning. Not because the past gets erased. Not because the pain magically disappears. But because His mercy, that word I've heard 1,000 times in church but never really understood until right now, His mercy is not about wiping the slate clean. It's about giving me the strength to write a new line on the same messy page. But I felt something shift in my chest. A quiet knowing. A still, small voice that didn't thunder from heaven but whispered from somewhere deep inside me, I never left. Not once. Not for a single second. And I thought about all of it. The sleepless nights. The rejected job applications. The unanswered prayers. That parking lot at 5 in the morning, standing alone with no mother to call and no God I wanted to talk to. The 2 years I spent running, convinced that if I couldn't be strong, I couldn't be loved. The bathroom mirror moment when I finally admitted I was never supposed to be strong in the first place. All of it. Every single thread. And for the first time, I saw the pattern. Not a pattern of punishment. Not a pattern of silence. But a pattern of presence. God was there. In every dark room. In every tear I didn't think anyone saw. In every question I was too afraid to ask out loud. He wasn't absent. He was just quiet. And I've learned something about quiet. Quiet doesn't mean gone. Quiet means close enough that you don't need to shout. Psalm 91 verse 11 says, "For He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." I used to read that verse and picture glowing beings with wings and swords, hovering around me like celestial bodyguards. And maybe that's part of it. But this morning, I understood something different. Angels don't always show up with wings. Sometimes they show up as a friend who calls at exactly the right moment, even though you haven't spoken in months. Sometimes they show up as a cool breeze on a day when the heat of your circumstances feels unbearable. Sometimes they show up as a single peaceful thought that slips into your mind right in the middle of a panic attack, one quiet reminder that you're not alone, that you've never been alone, that you will never be alone. I sat there at my kitchen table, coffee going cold in my hands, and I realized those angels had been there all along. I just couldn't see them because I was looking for fireworks, and God was sending me whispers. Now, let me pause right here. Because I need to say something directly to you. I mean, really directly. As if we're sitting across from each other at this wobbly kitchen table and I'm looking you in the eyes. I know you're tired. Not the kind of tired that a good night's sleep can fix. The kind of tired that lives in your bones. The kind that makes you wonder if you'll ever feel rested again. I know you've been praying and waiting and hoping and pretending that you're okay when you're really not. I know you've wanted to give up. Maybe you already have, in the quiet way that nobody notices, the way where you still show up, still go to work, still smile at the right moments, but inside you've stopped believing that anything will ever change. I know. I see you. And more importantly, God sees you. This morning, He wants you to know something. Not a theological concept. Not a Bible verse to memorize. Just this: He has never left your side. Not for 1 second. Not in the darkest night. Not in the longest silence. Not when you were angry at Him. Not when you stopped believing. Not when you ran as fast and as far as you could. He was there. He is there. He will always be there. And here's the truth I want you to carry with you today, the kind of truth that's short enough to remember but deep enough to change everything. The mercy of God is new every morning, not because He erases our past, but because He gives us the strength to face it. That's it. That's the whole thing. Every sunrise is God saying, I know what happened yesterday. I know what you did. I know what was done to you. I know the mistakes, the failures, the losses, the grief. And I'm not asking you to forget any of it. I'm asking you to let me carry it with you. I want to speak a blessing over you. Not a fancy, religious-sounding blessing. Just words that I believe God wants you to hear right now, this morning, wherever you are. It's from Numbers 6:24-26, and it's the blessing that priests used to speak over the people of Israel thousands of years ago. But I think it's for you too. Right here. Right now. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. Receive that. Not as a nice sentiment. Not as a religious cliché. But as a real, living, breathing promise from a God who has never broken a single promise He ever made. Can I pray with you? Not a long, complicated prayer. Just a real one. The kind you'd whisper to a friend in a quiet room. Father, thank you for this morning. Not because everything is perfect.